Hi there, and welcome to my second episode of Craft Here and Now. Today I want to talk about the foundation row for a plaid blanket. But before I begin, I want to explain a little bit about Filet crochet. I have a wonderful book here. It's called Stitch Collection Filet Crochet by Betty Barnden. I bought this on Amazon as a used product, and I was very surprised. It came in excellent condition. It's a beautiful book. It takes you through the whole process of filet crochet, but I'm not at liberty to share this book with you, so I will just talk about the one design that I made in here, which is a tulip. And this is the tulip design right here. As I said, I don't have permission to show you the pattern itself, so I'm just going to show you the finished product. But this is the tulip design that I had done a couple of years ago. And this is what it looks like. I had to put a black background behind it, otherwise it would not show up. Filet crochet, you have to use a very tiny, this is a G hook. Some people use a smaller crochet hook, and there are a variety of yarns, threads that you can use. And these three are all a number 10. And as you can see, it's a very thin crochet thread. I made another piece, a very small runner for the top of my desk. And this is how it came out. It was just a very tiny piece, but it fits perfectly just on the top portion of my desk. And I did this with bamboo cotton yarn, Yankee Monkey. And I love this yarn. It's very soft. It's a great quality. I believe it's, let's see, 70% cotton and 30% bamboo. And they recommend using a G hook for this. And I believe that is what I used as well. So these are just a couple of ideas of filet crochet. And what you do is you create a foundation the same as you would do for a plaid blanket. However, with a plaid blanket, you just weave through the strands of yarn when you're finished. And with filet crochet, you fill in the little squares that you develop row by row. And that's the difference with filet crochet, but it's basically the same foundation. You chain one, skip one, do a double crochet, and I'll demonstrate that. But I just wanted to point out that filet crochet is an amazing art in itself, and you can do wonderful things. You can make tablecloths and all kinds of ornamental designs. You can make placemats, and I just did this as a practice to see if I could do it. And it's a little bit time consuming. You have to really pay attention to the chart. It's difficult, but this book explains how to go about reading charts and follow everything. It says easy to follow charts, and it is true. That is actually true. It is easy to follow, but it takes a little bit of concentration. So with that, I just wanted to put that aside and show you what I'm currently working on, which is a very large blanket. This is about 56 inches wide, so I can only show you a little bit of it. I don't have much experience with this technical gear and filming, so bear with me until I get better at it. But this is a filet crochet foundation. And as you can see, there is nothing that I have filled in. It's just all an open filet. And what I will do later on when I'm finished with this foundation piece, I'll take the same color yarns that I've used, these 4 colors, and I'll just weave in one row under over, the other row in the opposite over under. And actually I have a very small sample piece that I did that I will show you. And I can show you a finished product as well, but you'll only see a small area of it due to this camera angle. So let me put this aside. And this is the sample that I made. And see, I started with one color. These here you have 3 colors. I've got the yellow, the gray, and the peach. And then I would normally repeat yellow, gray, peach, so on, and I of course make it wider. But this sample, the reason I did this sample is because I wanted to point out that when you are doing your plaid blankets, you have to allow for, well, you shouldn't say shrinkage, but the dimensions are going to change, not the width, but the length is going to change. This is 7 inches across, and I had a 7-inch square before I started weaving. And now this is only 5.5 inches. So as you can see, you're going to lose the distance in your length. So it's very important when you're doing your foundation, before you start the weave, that you increase the length. The first blanket I did, I was very disappointed to find out that my rectangle later became a square after I had done the weaving. And yeah, after all that work, I was quite disappointed. So I just want to point that out to you, to make sure your foundation piece is much greater in length than what you're going to end up with. So add a few extra repeats of whatever pattern you're working on before you start your weave. And my finished product, as I said, I can only show you a little bit here on this video camera. I'm going to get better at it. I know I am. I have to do some camera angle practicing, I think. I don't know. But this is my finished blanket. It's got the same open foundation, the Filet foundation, and then I used, believe it or not, I used all my scrap yarns for this. And I started here at the base with white, and then I had them, white was the basic color that I wanted to use, and then in between I used the various colors, whatever I had in my scrap barrel. And so it just went on and on and on. And then when I got to the end, I started the weave. And this is the blanket that was a rectangle that later became a square. So if I ever figure out how to do the right camera angles, I will be happy to share the full product with you that I made. And I'm very happy with it. It's interesting because there are a lot of colors going on here. I have a lot going on as far as the different colors. I didn't plan any type of a design. I just kept going using alternate colors with the white. So it came out, I'm very pleased with the way it came out. But I was, like I said, I was very disappointed that the dimensions had changed. I didn't expect that the weaving process would tighten it up the length. But that's why I'm here to tell you that after you do all that work on a foundation, please make a few extra rows for yourself, because you will be disappointed otherwise. So this is it. This is very happy. I'm very happy with this one. And the other one I think will be just as interesting. the one I showed you earlier, this one, even though I didn't use quite as many colors. And what I had the most of, this was the predominant color, this soft yellow, more like a wheat color. And then I had the light tan, the darker tan, and the charcoal black. So, and I also had the white. And the reason I had so much of this, I love to do thrift shopping, which I mentioned in my first video, because you never know what you're going to find. And I found a queen size blanket that I bought for $3. And what I ended up doing was, this is the remains of it, and I have been taking it apart, and I have so much yarn. I just have gobs and gobs of this yarn from this one blanket. And what I did was I used a ball winder and I made lots of different skeins with this. And this was actually a bonus piece, because you can see here that there are 2 strands. So throughout the whole blanket, whoever made this held 2 strands together. So I really ended up with quite a bit of yarn when I took it apart. So what I do is I buy these crochet blankets, and then I take them home and I wash them, and then I take them apart and I make skeins with a ball winder, and then I set it aside until I decide what I'm going to do with it. So this was the predominant yarn that I had, this color, because of the quantity that I ended up with. So I was very happy with that purchase. So today I just want to show you how you can get started on your foundation. I'm not going to go through the whole process of putting it all together, because it's pretty simple to figure that out. But just to do the basic foundation, this is remnants of another project I had done. It's Simply Soft yarn. This is nice yarn to work with, easy on the hands. So you start with a simple slip knot. Tighten that up and just make a chain. And you'll have to determine the length of the chain you want. I really can't give you any advice on that. What I like to do sets of 3. So you have 3 rows, and then 3 rows of a different color, 3 rows of the next color, and then you repeat. Unless you have more colors, then you just repeat the sequence. And then when I do the weave, I like to do 3 rows of the first color, 3 rows of the second color, and so on until I'm finished. So you'll have to figure out how many colors you want to use and how many repeats you want to do. I really don't have any suggestions for that other than what I just said. So I'm just going to chain a few here and just show you how to basically get started. And this is not going to be precise, but it will get you started. So just chain what you want, and then in your second chain from the hook, you're going to do your double crochet. So that's yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2, yarn over, and go through 2. Just your traditional double crochet. Now that's one way to get started. Then you chain 1, skip 1, chain, yarn over, and go through the next chain. Do your double crochet. Then you want to chain 1, skip 1, and go through the next chain. And you'll see that by doing that, you'll be creating boxes. And as I said, that's one way to do it. And if you do it that way, you'll have your edge set up for you. Some people, I'll show you an alternate way to do it. Some people will just yarn over and then go into the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. And do your double crochet, skip, chain 1, skip 1, go into the next one. And you can do it that way as well, because then you will have your end. But what I suggest is this is a little stitch marker. And I love stitch markers. I find they come in very handy. Put a stitch marker into one of the stitches on the end. And that'll come in handy for the future. So we'll just chain 1, skip 1, to the next. Now I'm not doing any type of a single crochet foundation row. I'm just using the basic chain foundation as my base. So we'll just do that all the way to the end. I suppose if you wanted to, you could add 1 row of single crochet, but after doing that big blanket, I discovered that it really wasn't necessary. I could just use the chain as the basic foundation to start my double crochets with. So here we are at the end. So when you come to the end, you want to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Turn your work, and you want to go into the top of your vertical double crochet. So you don't go into the space, you go into the top of the vertical crochet. So, and you do another, do that over, you'll do another double crochet. And then you chain 1 and you do a double crochet, you skip that opening, you skip that box, and you go into the top of the next double crochet. Now I always stop right there because I want to take another stitch marker and go into the edge of that, because that's where I'm going to do my the end of the next row. So you want to have a marker, because I find that sometimes these kind of look like they merge together, and if you make a mistake and miss a box, you will not be able to do your weave correctly. You need to have a box for each row. So chain 1, skip that box, and go into the top of your double crochet from the row below. Skip, chain 1, skip, and go into that next double crochet on the top. And we're almost at the end, and it's very careful to watch. This is what I'm talking about. This kind of looks like it merges together, so that's why I put a stitch marker there. So chain 1, go into that last double crochet, then you have to chain 1 before you do your end stitch. You want to make that last box after you do your chain. So just try to go into the top. It doesn't matter, you don't have to go exactly in the right place every time. You can just as long as you form a box, that's what's important. So yarn over, do your double crochet, and there you have your box. First one, the second one, and then chain 3, turn your work, and repeat that process. So do a double crochet into the top of the double crochet, chain 1, skip that box, and go into the top. And don't forget to add your stitch marker. Just put it in one of those stitches on the end so that when you do your return, you won't get confused and end it here, because I've done that before. I've gotten confused when I got to the end, and when I've gotten to the end and mistakenly I put the box, the end box, on this last double crochet, and then I did not have a box on the end, so I had to go back, rip it out, and redo it. So that's just a little tip I wanted to tell you about. These do come in handy. And then when you get to the end, you can switch colors after you do the number of rows that you would like to do. So basically you are doing a filet foundation for the square, for the plaid blanket. It's just an open filet. Unlike filet crochet, you are not filling in any of these boxes. You are just keeping them open until you do your final weave at the end. And here we are at the end again. And I'm glad I have my stitch marker to remind me that that's where I have to make the final box. In any of those stitches, just pull through and make your box. And then if you would like to switch colors, that's when you would do it at this point. You would switch colors. So, and then you just continue on, chain 3, turn, and there you have it. That's your basic filet foundation for this type of a plaid blanket. And then when you're finished, what I do is just end this here. For the weave, I cut 3 strands, and I would make them a little bit longer. Than the length of my finished piece. And then I would take a little plastic needle, or you can use a blunt nose embroidery needle, and then you just start at the edge and you just weave under and over and pull it through. So for every row of boxes, you're going to need 3 strands of yarn. And then for the next one, instead of going under over, you're going to go over under. And then at the very end, what I like to do is take my needle and put this through again and pass it through any of those bottom stitches, just like that. And the same thing on this side. I'm going to have to do it this way because I don't have enough length. Just go through any of those top stitches and pull it through. And that gives you a nice clean edge. And at that point, if you wanted to, you could do your overhand knot. That's what I did with my other ones. I just did a little overhand knot. It's not much to work with here, but overhand knot, and I do one side first, and then I try to flatten it out after I've done one side for each of these boxes, and then I do the other side and finish it with another overhand knot. There. I made that one a little too tight, but there. So that's why I do one side first. I get it all done, and then I try to flatten it out. And these ends, of course, you're going to have to weave in. You can weave them in as you go. When you change your color yarns, you can just weave those in, so you don't have to weave them in at the very end. You can just crochet them as you go. So that is basically how you can accomplish this weave at the very end. And for this blanket, I actually did do one row of single crochet, and then when I was finished, I did a row of single crochet around the edges. But if you're going to do a final row around the edges, I recommend doing your weave first, so that you don't get all these edge stitches mixed up with the one before it. At one point I had to redo the weave because somehow it got mixed up, and with a big size blanket, you just want to take a little bit extra time. Be careful. So once you're done with this, that's when you can go back and do your nice edge border if you desire. So I hope that was helpful, and I want to thank you so much for watching today, and have a blessed day. Thank you.